G'day everybody, this is a creepy candle build. The creepy candle file I found on Cults 3D. It's by a guy called Nico Industries. It was a free file and I was looking for other things and spotted and went, this is really good. Comes as two parts, a stand and the candle, and I printed all this off on my FDM printer, which no longer works because it was an absolute lemon. I've had nothing but trouble with it. And I won't be recommending Creality to anybody, because it was a dud and they haven't helped me at all. But I managed to get this print out and that was good. So after I'd printed it out, one of the things that happened during it was right in the middle of it, it did a layer shift, which is one of the consistent problems I've had with the machine. And so I had to chop the candles in half and chop the bases off and then re-glue them together, moved over and put back together. And so there was a little bit of filling to do. I decided to light these up, and so I drilled a hole down through the base and had to do both of them. And the first time round I found it was easier to put a bit of timber under it for the second time round, and so I bore a bit on my drill press and cut a hole out through the centre of it, as you can see. When I decided to use a torch because it was already had all of the bits and pieces that I needed for it, and the battery pack and everything, and I pulled the little torches apart. But when I put it together, I found that the battery pack wasn't going to fit in and give me enough clearance, so I've had to make an extra base that goes on the bottom of them. So to do that, I used some timber and turned. So in a minute you should see the turning of the product on the lathe. So I'd already painted the candles. They were fairly easy to do once I'd sprayed them. It was only a matter of getting the bases sorted out. And so I got a bit of timber and off we went. This is a bit of timber I had left over from another thing that I was doing, so I just put it in a new place, and then I turned the stands to, I hope, look like the bit above it, so that they didn't look out of place. And then what I did was did an in-between in the middle and tried to mirror it either side so that I could just chop it up in the centre and end up with two bases, which I did. A little bit of sanding for those and just sorting them out, making them flat, and from the tool marks that the saw had left on. And then I drilled a hole down through it in line with the hole that I'd done into the respective plastic bit that was FDM printed. I also drilled another hole across the side for the switch. Now the torches came with a little button switch on the bottom that you just push and it makes it work, but I couldn't adapt that because it's moulded into the base of the torch, so I had to add a little switch. I had several issues with this when I was doing it, and I had a two three-way switches, and completely mucked up don't even know what I was thinking, and made it so that there was one bit where the LED wasn't actually on, but a circuit was still made, so the batteries just cooked, and I was probably lucky not to set fire to things because I went to bed and got up the next morning and the batteries were flat, and when I put new batteries in they got very, very hot and I hadn't turned it on, and then I worked out what it on. So there was a little bit of toing and froing, and I had to pull the solder back off and do the circuit properly and make sure that everything was working after that. So once I soldered things on and checked them, I also put heat sinks over and shrunk down so I don't get any dry joints or any things. After I had well and truly made sure a bunch of times that the lights worked, I then started to assemble it into the base. So I didn't glue the battery pack in because I wanted the battery pack to be able to fall out the bottom and for you to change the batteries, but I did glue the switch into place, and then once the switch was glued on, I then also glued the timber base, fed the wires up through the plastic printed base of the candle. Is it still a candelabra? Candlestick holder. I had cut some little pieces of green perspex up from a ruler, and I used a hole saw to cut those little discs out, but I discovered after I'd done it, when I was trying to clean the print off, that the discs were actually printed green. They weren't green plastic, so I had to also get some cellophane, which my wife very nicely purchased for me while she was out, and so I also used the clear disc that came with the torch, plus a cellophane, plus one of the little rulers, to end up with the green, the right shade of green for the candle. So at every process, gluing things in, gluing things on, everything, I rechecked to make sure that there was everything still worked, so that I didn't have issues later, and if there was an issue I had to pull it apart. Then I used the hot glue gun to glue around the bottom. They'd already been glued on super glue, but I wanted to make sure of it, and I also wanted them, there's a little bit of a gap between them, the candle and the base in places, so I wanted to make it look a little bit more like it was candly. Taped them up to hide the candle and the switch, and then took them outside with a rattle can of silver and sprayed them, and so then brought them back in, and the bases were done. I had to repaint the bits of the candle that I'd done with the hot glue, so I repainted those white and touched up a couple of places on the candle where the rattle can hadn't really covered the plastic as much as I wanted. So got it all lovely, nice and white, and this is me doing that now. Then I got that's still doing the white. I think then I painted the silver on the base where the white doings are done. Oh no, I airbrushed some Griffin Grey, I think it is, it's contrast paint, and just sprayed it from underneath so that I got a little bit of shadows on them, so that when they're turned off they still have a little bit of character rather than only when they're turned on. Gave them a little bit of volume. I went back in and tidied up the silver on the candelabra bit, candlestick holder, whatever you want to call it, and that was pretty much them finished. This was a build for a present for a birthday for a D&D Dungeon Master, or RPG Dungeon Master, whatever you want to call him. And so thankfully they're not just tat. He's managed to be able to incorporate him in his games, and his D&D crowd like him doing it. So before I finished, I decided to do some glamour shots just to see how they go, and that was the build. It was a lot of fun, apart from the printer issues, but the printer is no more. It cacked itself and busted everything and broke belts and did all sorts of crazy things just for the hell of it. And again, won't recommend Creality to anybody. I have been really disappointed. But just took some glamour shots. So here's the shots with one on, then I took a shot with both of them on, and then reduced. I have, in the workspace that I'm working, I have 3 sets of LED downlights, so I progressively turned the lighting down on the lights to see whether the green got any greener for having less light on. The torch is very, very bright. The little LED button, I don't know what they're, button lights or something other, if what you call the LED, were extremely bright. So looking down the top of the candles is not a good idea. But as a result, they do quite light up well. Scared my grandson. He didn't like them at all, but they were well received by the gift receiver. So yeah, not a hard build. It was a little bit tricky for me working within the time frames. I got so many things on the go at the moment, but I'm very, very happy with the way that they came out, and quite happy that they don't melt and and I worked out what the problem was with the electronics. Always when you're doing your electronics, make sure you know what you're doing. You know, winging it's not really the best thing to do. This is the last of the lights turning off, so all of the lights off in the room. There was still sunlight outside, but with the thing up, they're pretty fandoodly, I reckon, and they came up really good on the photos. So I hope you've enjoyed. This is just a quick one and a fun one. Got a couple more things on the go at the moment, and I've still been finishing those off, but this was the job for this particular video. So there they are. That's with all the lights out. They're pretty creepy, and they are candles. So there you have it. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time I make another one. Have a really great day. Bye.